Welcome to Move Your Mind. My name's Nick Bracks, and this is a podcast where we have real conversations with real people and give real advice. Resilience is defined as the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioural flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. This is the third time I've interviewed Dr Marie-Helene Pelletier. She's the first person on this podcast to be interviewed 3 times, and she's soon to release a new book, The Resilience Plan, that's now available for pre-order. Marie-Helene is an international keynote speaker, executive coach, work psychologist, workplace mental health expert, and author. Marie-Helene, so great to see you. I was saying to you before, this is your 3rd time on my podcast. I've had, I think, 2 other people come on twice, and you're one of them, but it is a record that you're the 3rd one to come on. So thank you for coming back. I'm so excited and, glad that we've been able to continue this conversation over a couple of years.
Oh, I am thrilled and honored to be the record breaker. That's wonderful to hear. And same, like you said, it is a conversation that we need to continue to have and that evolves over time. And so glad that we're here talking about this important topic.
Exactly, and it really does. And I mean, as I think we both see working in companies, it makes such a difference when you bring up these conversations, when they hear someone talk, when they start to have different conversations. But if it doesn't evolve over time and continue, we don't get that change. So it's a good example, I guess, of what you're saying there. So I'm super excited to just hear, I guess, in general, can you give us a bit of an update about what you've been doing since we last spoke?
Yes, thank you. I've been continuing to do a lot of work with professionals, leaders, organizations on workplace mental health. And in some of the work, all of the work that I do, whether it's with audiences or individuals in my coaching work, there often is this knowledge about the importance of resilience and how we need it to meet all the challenges that we're facing and that we're excited to face in many cases. But then how do we bring it forward? And that's this continuation of this work that has led to me thinking, okay, wait a second, there may be a way to help save time and pain to some degree by getting some of this information together in a book. And so therefore the book appeared since the last time you and I talked. Finally, very excited about this and excited to have the conversations that connect with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the book's called The Resilience Plan. And yeah, we'll talk a lot about the book on this episode. And at the end, everyone listening, we're going to give links and information of what you can do if you want to purchase the book and find out more information. But it really is such an important topic, resilience. And I think it's something that we all have heard about. But I think like so many things when it comes to mental health, well-being, there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of buzzwords, but are we actually taking the action and doing the right steps daily? Are you, burnout's a huge thing that we see. Are you seeing that is a problem, that we're not getting that sustainability, I guess, in making these changes?
That's right. That's the key word, the making the changes. As you say, we've talked even more about it with the pandemic in the last few years and the overall global increased focus on our workplace mental health, with the World Health Organization declaring burnout an occupational phenomenon in the past few years. So it's more on the radar, and that's a wonderful thing. It needs to start somewhere, and that's where it starts. That being said, even if practically everyone knows, because we've heard it and we know the kinds of actions we should take to increase our resilience, it doesn't mean we're taking them. And what we're also seeing connected with this, but not entirely as a result of this, we also see burnout rates not only stay stable, they're increasing. Wow. And so with all these going on, what can we do to change that trend? Many of us have invested in doing the type of work we want to do. We're wanting to contribute in, and hopefully as much as possible we enjoy. But then people are burning out. So something needs to change. Something's not right. We have the information. We're still not implementing. We wish we did. And that's this disconnect that is fairly striking, that I thought, let's see what we can do about this.
Wow. And I mean, that's pretty amazing to hear that it's getting worse. The burnout's actually getting worse with all of this information we have about it. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? I guess what do you think is one of the main causes of that reason?
It's a great and complex question, because if it was a simple answer, we would be on it, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Everyone, all organizations. So let's step back for a quick moment to look at the definition of burnout. So definition of burnout from World Health Organization, and it's all based on, of course, research and information we have. Three main components, and that they don't necessarily appear in this order, so it varies. We also know this from research, but three components. One is exhaustion, which often we equate with burnout. It's not just that. It's a component of exhaustion, a component of cynicism, and a component of decreased performance. So it's impacting the quality of our work. So three components. Okay. Which doesn't mean we need to wait to have all three to take action, obviously, but that's the definition, just so we're all on the same page. The other important component of burnout is that it is not in the individual and it's not in the workplace. It's the relationship between the two. That's where the problem happens. And that's very important, because we sometimes have heard messaging that suggests that it is all in our hands as individuals. And very often I've worked with individuals who are burnt out, which often is not a diagnosis, but it does lead to diagnosis like depression, anxiety, things like that. And they feel like it's all in their hands. And that's a mistake. It's important mistake, because given that it's in the relationship, sometimes most of the source is actually in the workplace, not in us as individuals. So, and that's critical, because otherwise we could think that if we do all the things over here as individuals, we'll have immunity in some ways. No, we won't.
Yeah.
In a context that's demanding enough or toxic enough or wrong enough, it doesn't matter how many actions we're taking. It's still not going to work. So it's important to know. But the notion that I bring forward in my work and in this book is that we still want to increase our individual resilience as high as we can, because two reasons. We have control over it. That's already some good reason. But the second thing too is that even if all the problem is in the workplace, let's say the entire source is there, we can't just sit here and wait for them to change. We're going to be impacted, and at some point it may impact our mental health. So we want our resilience to be as high as possible, so we can either find solutions to this or even make the decision to leave.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, and I guess it's like anything we're because these are collective efforts, and I guess a company's like a microcosm of society, and we've got the same problem in society until we change as a whole, until we educate people more about this, until we can have better regulation, I guess, around how we use certain devices, and I don't know, until there's like a whole change in that area. It's going to be really difficult for an individual to make these changes, and the same in a company. But while that change is happening, we need to be as accountable as we can to take that responsibility, because otherwise it just won't change. So I guess it needs both sides of it. We need the individuals and we need the companies to make these changes.
Yes, we do. And as individuals here, sometimes the thinking I've heard is, well, the problem is in my organization, in the organization I work in right now. It's not for me. It's not mine. I have not done anything problematic, so I'm going to let them fix it, wait for it to be fixed. And the challenge, like I'm saying, is that depending on how long it takes, and usually it is not quick because it's a large system to change, then in that duration, things will continue to impact us. And eventually, we can't override our mental health. We cannot say, well, it's their problem, I'm going to wait, it's for them to fix.
Yeah.
During this time, it's having an impact right? And so that's why we do need to take action here.
That makes a lot of sense as well. Yeah, it's like it's going to compound. The longer we leave it, we're going to get worse and worse and worse. So, resilience is talked about so much now. There's a lot of it really is a buzzword. There's a lot of talk about it.
Yeah.
Is there is there misinformation about it? Are there is it being sort of not really put into practice enough? And what does it actually mean? I guess because there's so many different people talking about it, but I think that people get confused because they probably think, okay, I need to be more resilient, but how do I be more resilient? What does that actually mean? Where do I begin?
Yes, yes. All good all questions people ask themselves. So let me start with definition. There are many definitions. The one I work with and many researchers and others work with as well is our ability to go through adversity and grow from it, come out even stronger. Okay. So if we go with this definition, and if we look at the research about resilience, it almost acts as a protective factor for our mental health, not immunity, protective factor. And the ways in which we increase it, there are multiple ways, some that, again, we're very familiar with. That's not where the problem is. I'll get to it in a second. But the ways we know from research, we will increase it, some of which you talk about in your own work, Nick, I'm aware, and it's wonderful. Things like, yes, exercise, doing cardio, strength, and meditative type activities, our nutrition, huge impact. We're seeing more and more research on this. Our sleep, of course, investing in time with people we enjoy spending time with, so our social interactions. And then these are the top 4. There are others, like spending time in nature, doing volunteer work. There are a number of areas. The source of the ways in which we can increase it is not the issue. The issue is implementing. I'll work with individuals who are very busy doing whatever they're doing, and then I'll ask what kinds of things do they do to increase their, it's almost like the supply side of a supply and demand equation. And they say, oh yeah, I exercise, I meditate, I sleep, all these things. And I say, okay, so in the last 2 weeks, how many times? And then they'll pause and they'll say, well, the past 2 weeks have been very busy, but that is in general what I'm trying to do, which is, I think, an illustration that we've all gone through at times where we know what we would like. We have an idea of that recipe, if I can almost say it this way. But the cookie cutter approach does not work. It needs to take our context into account. And that's where the problem is. That's also where the solution is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because everyone's different. Everyone's got different constraints. And I think it's like you're saying, it's easy to point out, okay, these are the things that are going to help us. These are what could work. But one individual might have a different tolerance for how much they can take on. Another person might have, family commitments and all these other things. So it's like within that time frame and within what's available, how do we work a plan out? So is that something your book helps with, to give a bit of a blueprint, I guess, to allow people to create their own resilience plan?
Yes, and you touched on 2 key things. It will differ between individuals and also within individuals. So you and I at different moments, and everyone at different moments in time, we will need something different. So the plan will need to evolve. And so, yes, that's the idea. The book emerged because of a lot of my work is with people who are familiar with how we approach business decisions. And most of us will relate to this. Like if a business is about to launch a new product, for example, they don't just say, oh, we've got this new product, let's go put it on the market. What they do is they'll look at, okay, what else is already on the market that looks like this? How much does it cost? How many people buy it? What else is going on in the overall world, in the overall moment in time that may influence how much people will want this thing moving forward or not? What's a possible threat? What's the opportunity? You see the language, right? We will use this kind of thing. So a lot of attention is paid to the context. And if we compare it to over here, our resilience, it's almost as if we do version 1 of this. We say, oh yeah, I want to be more resilient. I'm going to go exercise, and then we don't do it. And what we're doing with the book is using the same concepts from business. I'm bringing best research from psychology, best practice from business together to show
Yeah.
how we can use a similar process where instead of just saying, oh, yes, I should exercise, we instead look at our context. Okay, so if these days your schedule is such that whatever it is, you're traveling so much, or your commitments on a daily basis are such that no, you do not have the 1 hour to make it to the gym, do a half hour or 45 minutes and come back, then how are you going to maintain your resilience through possibly this or other ways? And so the book brings us towards various tools so that we can actually implement tools like, okay, let's get back to our values, which organizations would do here, right? What's their core values? We do the same. What kinds of sources of demands am I facing? You gave great examples. Sometimes we're trying to increase our work resilience and we're not considering the personal demands that are going on. Need to consider this in the full picture. So the book really makes sure we review all the demands and the sources of supply we have. It makes sure we explore all parts of our context, the same way businesses would do, to create a plan. And there's a structure and a way to get there. It's simple. That's the main comment people give to me. And I've done workshops also on this. The same comment comes there that, okay, I thought it would be complex. It isn't. It just requires a bit of attention so that we can have a plan that's very personal for each of us that will evolve over time, and it does.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram at Nick Bracks. I really appreciate your ongoing support. And then having flexibility within that plan as well, like you're talking about there, that maybe there'll be a week or a few days where you just can't find the time to get to the gym or whatever it is. So having a contingency plan that, okay, how do I manage it? How do I be fluid when these situations come up? Is that another part of it?
That is absolutely part of it, because a successful plan is not a rigid one. It's one that can adapt. And yes, in the book, I've also used some of my experience, the experience of people I've worked with, to identify key moments where we'll need something different. Give you an example, our vacation. We'll go on vacation and think, oh, well, of course, it's going to be a moment of increased mental health and physical health and resilience because it's a vacation. Not necessarily. Unless you've made a plan for how that's going to look like, it may not happen. It's a positive change. It's a nice phase and all. And having versions of your plan for this kind of week or moment is also necessary. And then there will be some for others. If you're traveling a lot for work, how does that look like then? If something completely unexpected is happening at work or personal life, how do we modify the plan then? And that makes it more adaptable and successful.
Yeah, again, makes so much sense. And I guess so that would, one of the big misconceptions about resilience and I guess anything in personal change, people, I've seen this so much where it's often black and white. It's sort of all or nothing, where someone will think, I need to be more resilient. So that means I'm just going to have to go all in, and whatever's thrown at me, I'm going to just do whatever it takes. And that motivation might be there in that moment, but maybe in a month's time, you don't have the motivation. So if you haven't built the systems and the daily practice, how do you do it? So I guess, like, is that a big thing, that people understand what it is, but they're not really being honest about how do I do it? And I see it with exercise all the time. People say, I want to lose weight, I'm going to do this thing, and they've talked about it for years and they have this motivation and they go almost too far for the first month and then they just stop. They never, it's this all or nothing attitude, where the answer lies in, let's actually change our daily behaviors and, make it part of our life, and there's no end to it. This is forever.
Yeah, you're touching on very important points. One of them is the importance of being realistic about the plan. And one of the ways that will make it realistic for each of us is that it's going to be very customized, very personalized to each of us. And so, say with the example you're giving, someone would want to, let's say, bring more physical exercise in their daily life. The more they can, if they've done the work to explore the the list, the group of the values they have. So highly unlikely this individual only values physical exercise. More likely than not, they value other things. For example, they may value spending time with friends. They may value, I don't know, learning, for example, or spending time in the mountains, whatever, group of values. So then if we're looking at the group of values and we're looking at the sources of supply and demands they're facing and the overall context they're in, then it will force them almost to take a bit of a distance from this intention to go very intense right now and then lose motivation in 2 months. And instead see that, okay, we're here now today. The next few months are likely going to be busy. And there is this big project due in 3 months, maybe, or whatever, like really taking a bit of a distance so that the choices we're making today are really sustainable over those next few months. And maybe the plan then will be revisited after 3 months for the next, whatever, the next quarter. And so it keeps it alive. It keeps it dynamic and adjusted to where we are, which in itself adds to the motivation.
That makes so much sense, because we can, if we're not crystal clear on our values and reminding ourselves, we might have the best intentions in the world and understand what we need to do, but it's not going to be strong enough. It's not going to last on those days where, or weeks or months, when we're just in a slump and we just don't want to do anything. That's when we really need to remind ourselves, hang on, what's my value? Why am I doing this? Why do I need to make sure that I look after myself and do all of these different things? Because it's so easy to fall out of it. And life, no matter who you are, life 100% is going to, be up and down and throw obstacles at you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast and want to learn more, I've released my first book, Move Your Mind, How to Build a Healthy Mindset for Life, where I talk about my own journey with mental health and share tips from experts on how to maintain a healthy mindset. You can buy the book on Amazon or through my website at nickbracks.com/book.
Yes. And you see how the parallel with business is exactly there. That's when people either launch a new product or an entrepreneur starts a business, whether they write a formal business plan or just have one in their head. What this will do, having a clear strategy, is that it does, to your point, keeps them on track, right? Because different demands will come, different opportunities will come, and you can't possibly take them all here as a business. You'll have to decide where you're focusing and maintain that strategy, or if it needs to evolve the strategy and then continue to follow it. Same thing here. To your point, with that clarity on our values and on our plan, if we created one, then we'll know where we're going to say no, we're not going to invest here, and where we're going to maintain our focus, because that's the plan. And if the overall plan looks like it needs to change, we will. But it's not going to be just me going in one direction or the other based on, the values of this organization here or the values of this person over here. I have clarity on my values, my plan. I will still consider if I need to change my direction, I can. But it will be a deliberate decision as opposed to being taken by waves all over, which at some point we will not be able to sustain this.
No, exactly. And consistency is everything. And, you look at the best athletes or people excelling, or, even recently, like I've been watching Novak Djokovic in the tennis. I love tennis, although I'm a Nadal fan. But Djokovic, you see the consistency, and he follows these same routines daily. And a lot of it's probably boring, but over a period of time, the results speak for itself.
The results do. And in the context of this, like having your strategic resilience plan, for sure, you'll want the consistency once you have your plan. And for sure, also, this plan will change over time. I had someone in one of my workshops that happened to take this workshop once, and it was January just last year. And so she created her plan. And then I happened to, she invited me to come and speak to her own leadership team in her workplace. So I came and she was there. And she just availed herself to the exercise again. And she spoke to me after, and how she realized that the plan she had created 4 months earlier in January had now been in place and followed and all this. And so she was actually ready to create her next plan. And
Mm.
that's how she used that workshop. So yes, you create it, then it gives a direction that is not that hard to follow because it's so connected with what you want. It just feels natural by then. So you do it. And eventually you'll be ready for the next version of this plan, which will then follow. So it's not one and done forever. It's
Yes.
one, you've learned the process, so you implement it now, great. And then you evolve it. But once you know how to do it, you can do it again.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So what would you say, anyone listening right now, someone that's at that point where you're feeling burnt out and they have reached that point where they just don't know what else to do, they're just hit a wall, they're feeling so stuck, what would you suggest as a first potential step to someone in that position?
It's a position that we sometimes feel close to or in, right? Most of us during different points in time, depending on life. I would say if we are, though, where you're describing, like you're feeling stuck, don't know what to do next, that kind of thing. When people ask me this, then I say, in that state, you talk to someone, because it's hard when you are actually there, the bottom of your tank, practically. It is actually hard. It's not a moment where I say, oh, read a good book, as good as this book may be. I would say it's hard. That your level of energies usually when you're there are so much lower that your concentration's not great. And we need a second head. So I would say in that context, you talk to a mental health professional. That's where I would send people. And if you don't know where to start, then go for a physical health professional who will help you find it and look for that professional until you found them. That's what I would say there. If you're thinking you're close to it, like you can see it from here. So you're not there right this second, but you could see it. You know that your ability to deal with demands is just a bit harder to find than it was, say, not so long ago. Then I would say that's when you want to, I would say, go back to actions that have worked for you before. Because even without me being specific about someone or having talked to someone, if we know something has worked for you before, it likely will work for you again now. So I would return to this. You've likely let it go and because you're busy or whatever. So I would say, go back to this. It may help start climbing out. That would be my second recommendation. And then if you're even further away, then that's when you can maybe step back and take these steps of looking with more of a global and personal and realistic eye to your overall context. And then identifying something that's achievable.
And then buy your book. That's, get the resilience plan.
February 6th, 2024. It's going to be there. You can pre-order now. But that's where, that's when it's coming out.
Okay, great. So anyone listening, where would be best for them to go if they want to, pre-order or, try and get the book?
Yes.
Learn more.
theresilienceplan.com website. It will connect with everything that I do, including the book. So theresilienceplan.com.
And February 6th is when it comes out for anyone listening. So make sure to check it out. Yeah. And is there anything else you want to, just before we go into these final questions, anything else about the book that you would like to mention before we go into that?
I would say stay curious in general about the ways in which you can actually make some changes. About the book itself, it's a concise book. So if you're about to board a longer flight, you're going to be able to go through the book and come out with your plan. I know my audience is busy, does not have time for the longer conversations. So it's a business book that's you can read it in a longer flight and benefit from it immediately.
I love that. I love those kind of books, and it's, I guess, the practicality of it, and it's there, and it's a tool that, and the last thing people want, when they're wanting help in this area, is to feel more overwhelmed. So I think that's really fantastic, and again, highly recommend anyone feeling any of these symptoms, go and purchase this book, check it out, because I know how valuable your work is, and I'm sure it's going to help so many people. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. We finish every interview with 5 closing questions, and we've done this, like I said at the beginning, twice with you. So it'll be interesting to see if, what answers come up. These can be sort of quick, whatever comes to mind. The first one is, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
Ah, and you're right. I don't remember what I've said to this last time. I'm gonna say going for hikes in the forests but on the East Coast, the mountains are older mountains, so they're not they don't have the peaks that we have on the West Coast here. But they're wonderful in the fall, and I still love the
Yeah,
fall very much. So that would be a really good one.
that's such a beautiful time of the year. Yeah, it really is. What do you think is currently the biggest burden on mental health in society?
Oh, currently, well, and there may be a few. I'll say one that connects with the topic of my book is the assumption that professionals and leaders are resilient by definition and therefore don't need to do anything about it. They're already there. You don't need to do anything about it. Move on to more of the technical demands of your work. And that's a misconception that becomes a burden, because if we switch that mindset to one where we can be proactively taking creating a plan and implementing it, then that will change things significantly.
That's really interesting. What is your personal definition of happiness?
Ah. Well, it probably connects with because you get to a point where as a psychologist and knowing the research, you really cannot take my profession out of me and me out of my profession. It comes together now. And I've so many times observed in my personal experience the reality of what I see in research, that it becomes just one almost. So one of the things we know from research is that happiness often is a result of having clarity on your values and creating life actions and moments on, as much as you can, daily life that connect with these values. So I think that the more for myself I can see that connection for what I do in my life, the better. And that's so. And you were asking, say your question again.
Personal definition of happiness. Yeah.
Personal definition. That alignment between our values and what's going on in our lives. Yeah.
Actually, I love that answer. That's a really good way to distill it. That's great. What are you most afraid of?
Oh. Afraid or hoping people will do things differently is missing the opportunity to take such simple actions that can make such a big difference. And I think that's in part sometimes the more as I became an author and spoken to others who have been authors, who are authors like yourself as well, sometimes that's part of what the book does, is at least it allows for a message to live outside of just conversations we have, such that potentially others can, in a different way, be part of that conversation. So it allows more useful information, hopefully, to get in even more hands. So that is helping with my that possible desire that we have a conversation about these important topics as opposed to not having it.
Yeah, it's so important. Well, final one. What are you most proud of?
Well, now I would have to say right now, that would be the book, but there are many other things. I am a sort of a one challenge type of person, one PhD, one child, one book, not planning to do another one. I've given it all I got. So all these larger projects I'm very, very proud of. And there are other things too, but that would be my answer for now.
There's so much to be proud of, and I'm sure there'll be many, many more of these one challenges that you do in so many different areas over the next period of time. And love everything you're doing. And the book looks fantastic. I'm looking at the cover behind me, and yeah, it looks really nice. And I'm super excited to read it myself. And yeah, so congratulations again. And again, anyone listening, make sure to check it out. But thank you so much for making the time and sharing all of that with me today.
Absolute pleasure, Nick, and glad I am the record breaker.
There you go. You're the record breaker. So anyone else listening, yep, we've got a record breaker here. Check out the book.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks so much. Thanks to Dr. Marie-Helene Pelletier for joining me today for Move Your Mind. Also, a huge thank you to those of you listening. I really appreciate your support. If you'd like to learn more or connect with me personally, visit www.nickbracks.com or send me a DM on Instagram at nickbracks. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.